Welcome to the Smart Living Spaces vlog. I am Sharon, architectural and passive house designer. I'm also a Homestar professional located here in New Zealand. It's my mission to make healthy, comfortable, energy efficient and affordable homes for everyday people. So come on a journey with me where I share my knowledge gained over the last couple of decades, because we aren't going to be building better if people don't understand and see the value in changing what we are creating. So hello and welcome to this vlog from me, Sharon of Smart Living Spaces. So in the last vlog, I introduced you to some of the people behind the scenes of Small Smart Spaces, which is my range of pre-designed concepts that are Homestar and Passive House certifiable. Now, Small Smart Spaces is only possible because of a range of people, products, and processes that work well together for a common result. And these people, products, and processes are often working quietly in the background, making amazing things happen. So given all the people that I asked to be on this vlog with me said yes, I have split this into two. So this is the second. The last vlog, I introduced you to a foundation system, a structural system, the window system, and an affiliate builder. Now in this vlog, we talk claddings, ventilation, Homestar, the structural floor and stairs, and insulation. So come with me and hear more stories of some pretty amazing people. So when I was a teenager, I was watching the start of the forestry moving into the Amazon rainforest. No surprises, my sustainability aspirations started really early on, and I was watching on the news the protesters that had chained themselves to the trees. And the forestry workers were revving the engines on these large logging machines, waiting for these protesters to just drop from exhaustion. And the last one that dropped to her knees was a lady with this really wild red hair. I can never forget that. And two men picked her up, one by her arms and one by her legs, and just sort of dragged her out of the way. And I remember being really conflicted with my career preference of architecture, which is creating and building stuff, and the reality that this could be destroying the lungs of our earth. And I remember having an epiphany that said, if you stand on the outside, you can only protest. But if you get into the forestry industry, you can learn how to make things better and enact change. So Abodo's story just resonated with this memory of mine. So I'm really, really happy to have a chat with Sarah from Abodo to tell you of their amazing story. So this morning I'm talking to Sarah from Abodo, and she's going to tell us a little bit about her story and why she's part of the Abodo team, because there's a really cool story behind there. So good morning, Sarah. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, Sharon. Thank you. Good morning.
Awesome. So tell me about the Abodo story and how you ended up there, and sort of a bit about that Abodo history.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Um, well, the Abodo story, I guess it's really the journey of Dan Gitzel, who's the owner of the company. Similar, Ben Campbell, who a lot of people will be familiar with, who's been in the company for a long time. Journeys on their journey through the timber industry, right? So they started quite young in the timber industry, trading timber. And through that, they both saw sort of on individual, they've got individual stories of this, but they were both seeing the exploitation of timber and forests, both here and overseas, either the Pacific or through Canada. And eventually that sort of led on, so they were witnessing this and starting to observe this, but then at the same time they were trading New Zealand plantation timber. So, they're seeing this exploitation of these natural forests and these trees that take hundreds of years to grow, while selling plantation timber that we have a lot. We've got a huge amount of timber fibre that we grow here, more than we'll ever be able to use domestically. So that really sort of eventually led to a question, and then investigating how this resource that we have here in New Zealand, which is the radiata pine, that's planted for the purposes of commercialisation, how can we use that better? Is there better technology out there? Because currently and historically, for as long as we know, it's always been treated with chemicals. But so that eventually led to the question, well, there must be something else. We must be able to do this better, and use this timber to help reduce the pressures on these old forests that simply can't sustain. Yeah, so that's really the story of Abodo.
And how did you get involved? Like, did you knew about the story, or how did you become part of the Abodo team? What was the drivers?
Well, I mean, personally, my values sort of align from a environmental point of view. I wasn't so aware of biodiversity loss and forests and things like that before I started Abodo, but general sort of environmental, good practices and things like that is what aligns with me personally. I was working for a different material supplier at the time, so I was in the industry, and I was aware of different material suppliers, and I'd seen Abodo, and I really liked their product, and I really liked that there was quite a big push from them on that sort of sustainable side, and I was really keen to learn more. That was something that, like I said, aligned with my values, and as a salesperson, to be able to get up and sell something that ultimately is actually positive for buildings and people, and I mean, gosh, even the environment is a pretty amazing thing to be able to do. So that's what attracted me to Abodo. And I mean, that was from the outside, but yeah, I've been pretty stoked to learn that that's genuine as well. That those drivers or those things that you see in the marketing, in terms of the drive around the sustainability aspect of what we do, is a very big part of Abodo, and continues to be so. So yeah, that was great
So
to learn as you get in there.
awesome. Sounds like there's a real personal values alignment that you've got with the Abodo brand.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, I think it's sort of fair to say for a lot of people who work at Abodo, there'll be personal alignments with that as well. And I mean, it's not, we've got a bunch of values like a lot of companies do, of course. But, we're very, very big on people, like a lot of people are. But another thing that Abodo does, which I don't think a lot of people would realize, is the technology that we're using, thermal modification, that innovation, it happened here in New Zealand, right? That those scientific studies were done here, all that research was done here. We have partner suppliers that are involved in the process. It's quite a long process to make the product. And all that knowledge and all that IP is sitting in New Zealand, sitting in these communities in Reparoa, in Otahonga, in Mangere, in Ohenewai. It's sitting in these communities where, you've got to learn all this stuff. There's not a low barrier to entry to do this. And so, that's all driving this forward, and all that revenue that we're getting is going throughout all these communities. It's really adding to the New Zealand economy from an economic point of view, but also just a general knowledge, and and moving the whole industry forward, which, the building industry is a massive slow boat. It doesn't move forward very, very fast, as you would know. So yeah, I mean, that's another thing that I really appreciate, and I know that there's other people in the company that that really aligns with their values as well. Yeah.
So it's not just the product that's sustainable, it's actually the business model that Abodo has embodied that is sustainable too, supporting communities, New Zealand economy, all of that stuff.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's equally as important. That we're bringing along other people with us as a company. There's other companies involved, and that's important. You can't do this on your own. Really, in terms of what we do, we're at the end. We sort of sell the end product. So yeah, that is just as important. Yeah.
Which is a lovely segue into small smart spaces. I gave you a crash course, and there was such alignment with where with my intentions of small smart spaces, and just where Abodo sits in terms of supporting New Zealand companies, New Zealand products. It's about people, process, and products all together. So what was your takeaway when I introduced you and said, hey guys, this is small smart spaces and you're a part of it? Do you want to stay on board?
Yeah, well, again, there's been lots of companies who have, tried these sorts of things, and consents or offsite building and all these things, and they come and go, or they stay. It is certainly a space that is getting better, but again, quite slowly, right? And that's, as I said before, the New Zealand building industry, probably the building industry around the world doesn't move in technology forward very quickly. It's a very risk adverse industry. I mean, in New Zealand, we've got very good reasons, but we all understand why that is. But it is a slow adopter, right? And so anyone prepared to sort of take that on and put forward a model that can produce, really well performing homes at, a reasonable cost, and I don't mean a cheap cost, but at a reasonable cost for what you're getting, then go for it. We're keen. Yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy to do any of this. It's not easy to bring in new technology. It's not easy to try a new model of doing something. It's certainly not easy to try and do a high performing home for a reasonable cost. Yeah, we're on board. So yeah. Best of luck, and we're right here with you.
I love it. It's like, Brene Brown says, you'll never get criticized by someone who is in the arena getting your butt kicked with you. I kind of feel like Abodo's right there with me. So it's been really great to have you guys on board. Sarah, thank you so much for your time this morning. I've learned a lot and I've enjoyed this chat.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
So Grant Anderson of Steibel Eltron New Zealand has always been really great to deal with, and he knows things all ventilation. In fact, he joined up with Formance, York US, Joe Lyth and Stark Joinery a few years ago with the Living 2.0 Roadshow to help designers and architects learn how to build better. Now, Grant does the designs for the mechanical heat recovery ventilation systems, and he's also quite proactive in the passive house space. So for small smart spaces, it was just a natural fit. So we're going to jump into the chat that I had with Grant, with him talking about the passive house architect Bronwyn Barry.
And was inspirational for me. In particular, she was actually talking about overheating was the biggest issue way back then, and even with my limited amount of experience and knowledge, I was kind of saying the same thing. I was going, gosh, this lady's really, she's just on key. And but she's got a very successful passive house architectural business in the US. And she said, when I became successful when I stopped telling people I was building them a passive house. I just built it. I just designed a really good house. I told them they're going to be really comfortable, that their power bills would be low. But I never referred to the term passive house, because as soon as that happened, they all went down a rabbit hole. And then she'd get to the end, and as they're moving in, she's going, oh, and by the way, this house performs to the standard of a passive house. If you wanted to certify it, we've actually got all the documents. We've done all that all the way through. And that's how she became successful. Just stop using that term. Yeah. So people are really driven to have, when you talk about code minimum, everybody knows that less is less. And so when you're intentionally going forward with the least you're allowed to have or you're permitted to live in, of course it's going to cost less, but those same people are happy to turn on a heater to warm the house up, and some of them pay a substantial amount of money. So yes, of course we're all going to pay for comfort, and so we've got the choice: can we do it at the beginning, or can we do it as an operational cost afterwards?
That's so true. I think Elron Barrow was saying to me at some stage about the COP, how people talk about the COP over heat pump being about 2, 3, maybe 5 if you're lucky. We'll say 3.5 to 4. And he's saying that a mechanical heat recovery ventilation unit is actually getting you a COP of 16. And when you sort of put those two values side by side, suddenly then you see, oh, well, this is where the efficiencies are coming from. Because as you say, people are still happy to turn on a switch to heat their house. Yeah.
Now, when you say to people, when they ask how much power does it use, and you say to them, oh, it's going to use 70 watts or 80 watts, and they go, oh, that's great. But anyway, it'll recover more energy than it uses. It's the only appliance in your house that's going to do that.
Yeah.
And they kind of go, oh, okay, but they just don't take it on board. They don't
Yes.
understand what the implications of that are. And there's a term I've been using a lot this week, which is herding cats. And I think that's kind of, the whole passive house movement and getting people to understand it and relate to it and get on board with it is a bit like herding cats. Some will come through the gate, but the rest will just keep wandering around in circles and doing whatever they want to do.
Yes, until they see value and tangibility in it. I think we're very good, and you're a passive house, certified passive house designer, so you can understand the technicality of it. And I think we tend to get hung up on talking about that technical stuff, like we're selling it to other people who understand it.
Yep.
And trying to make it tangible to everyday people who just are scared off by the exclusivity kind of, maybe what's the word I'm looking for? Reputation it seems to have to develop, fairly or unfairly.
Yep. When I'm talking with people, I'm really talking more about the actual outcomes that they want in their own home, which is literally to be warm and dry. And it sounds like cliche, but it's actually what they want. They want it to be warm. They want it to be dry. And, they want to be healthy. And not just heat recovery ventilation on its own will do that, but, you do all the pillars and that's what you're going to get. But I do feel that the use of the term passive house, it's like flicking a switch and people kind of turn off or have preconceived ideas as to what that means. But when you're just talking about the actual outcomes of what passive house is, they're all on board with it. Everybody's on board with that, a warm, dry house with low operational costs. And not only that, but the building itself will last longer as well.
Just wanted to sort of lead you into a little bit more, because you've pretty much covered such amazing, just so naturally, just woven it in, and I can just cut it out. Did you want to explain a little bit more about this installer training that you've been doing, and about the commissioning and what the benefit that is for a homeowner?
Yeah, well, for the homeowner, it's about better outcomes for everybody. So, and I think everything from the design stage through the installation is all about better outcomes. And so it's very easy to take any heat recovery ventilation system and install it in a manner where you'll basically destroy the efficiency or the true installed efficiency of that. So with system designs, we're really good at that actually. So we can do a good system design and we can hand it out to an architect or a builder. But what actually happens on a building site can be very different. And we've had a few examples of that this week where, really, really good working designs have been done. And when we actually go and inspect the installation afterwards, it's actually completely different. So ventilation units where we intended it to be, but where they've drawn the air from outdoors is different. The type of ducting they've used is flexible in some areas, there's a lot of reasons why you don't do that. And so the unfortunate thing further on down the chain is that those poor installation practices have to be overcome with use of increasing fan speed to deliver the actual amount of air you want and those kinds of things. And so the training really is about it's about the installer side of it. So what we do with that is we walk them through all of the details about what we're considering when we do a system design. So that's, about, supply air goes into a living room and into a bedroom, and we extract air continuously out of wet rooms. Any room with a tap is a wet room, and continuous extract from a wet room is the ultimate way of drying a house out. And so we go down, this is what we're talking about, this is the space, and this is how we calculate what the air volumes are and the likes. And so the intention being is that if these people are fully aware of all of the principles of what we're considering when we do the ventilation design, that they can walk into any building and know what should be done and how it should be done. And when they pull up our drawings, they go, yep, that's all in line with that. But if, say, the homeowner comes along and they've got some ideas, they go, yes, I know we've got that design, but what I want to do is this, they're in a position to be able to say, well, you can do that, but this will be the impact. Or if you do that, this is the compromise that may happen, or there may be, you know, some structural transmission of sound, or whatever it is, you know, there may be some unwanted energy gains. If we draw air off the western side of the building, it tends to draw the air off the superheated cladding on a hot summer's afternoon, and you're bringing in unwanted energy, which we calculate to be around about a couple of kilowatts. So it's like turning on a 2 kilowatt heater in the afternoon when you don't want it on a hot summer's day. So the intention of the training is to get the installers up to speed to try and circumvent those problems. The biggest problem that we experience is all of the advice and the drawings and everything that we put forward is not adhered to on site. And you know, it's not really something to complain about. It's just reality. And so what we do is we do the design side, and then we have my colleague Marty gets up and he goes through all of the installation side, which is what the tradies need to do about how to install all the grill housings, how to run all the ducting, how to make your connections, considering, you know, will the unit be mounted on the wall, or are we going to stand it off the wall so we eliminate structural transmission and those kinds of things. And how we go about that. We've got a few videos of other installs happening. And then we move on to, so it's like a 3-stage thing. There's morning, midday, and then there's the afternoon. And then we go on to the commissioning. And so that's the next thing we're going to be doing is some videos about commissioning ventilation systems. So for an installer, which is primarily what these are intended for, it's a 1-day course. You complete that, and then you do 2 installations, and they are verified by us. You will be on our website as a certified, verified installer, and there will be other benefits to them that we will bring their way as an approved, accredited installer. So there's some social proof, because they will literally be on our website. Anybody will be able to see who they are. And so that's an accredited installer. And then the other thing which is also coming, which we're just having a conversation in the meeting that held me up for this call, is an online course, which is basically you know, a few hours of a little MVHR course you can complete online, answer some questions, and then you kind of like get a you know, a badge of honor. So it's like the beginners thing. So for installers, we'd say, well, you complete that first before you even come to the 1-day course. And yeah, so that's what's happening along there. It's the first one happened in Christchurch, and we had 43 attend, and we've got another one happening in Auckland very soon, and we're already talking about the other ones that are coming up. So there's going to be 2 to 3 to 4 a year going forward.
It seems like there's a real demand from the industry for that, so that's great, because there's a yearning for knowledge. But for a customer or client, what it does mean is that all of the design intention of creating a healthy, comfortable home has got more assurance of actually happening on site, because I don't think clients and customers are quite aware of how much left in translation design intent is to creating the actual finished product, or the finished home. So that just creates a degree of assurance for clients.
Yeah, so I refer to that as the certainty of outcome. So when we're doing the design, it's about certainty of outcome, that your system will be installed to its maximum true installed efficiency. And then when we're working with installers, we're trying to get them to comply to those principles or adhere to them, so that we're not getting any unwanted energy loss or unwanted energy gains. We're also making sure that we're not unintentionally introducing noise-related problems, which is, you know, a massive concern. And so if we get it all right through every single stage, the outcome for the homeowner is as good as it possibly can be. So you get a really nice, quiet operating system. It's recovering the most amount of heat. So you mentioned that there could be a COP of 17, which is very realistic, but it could be higher than that. And yeah, nice, quiet, fully efficient, as good as it possibly can be. Those people will rave about it, and then they'll tell others, and they'll want to do it as well. Because
and people experience it.
Yeah, once you experience it, yeah.
you go, well, why I want one of these, a dry, you can tell the difference about breathing in fresh air, right? You can just like, oh gosh, the air's fresh in here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's warm in here and it's quiet in here.
There's also, I've got an installer I've been working with basically the entire time, 14 odd years, and they're really good. So he was conferring with me a few weeks ago that now that he's been doing this for such a long period of time, he also installs heat pumps. That he's been into so many new homes, installed heat pumps, and some of them have got heat recovery ventilation as well, and they're still his clients. So he's going back into these homes that are now 5, 6, 7 years old, and he can see that the ones with heat recovery ventilation are not aging as much as the ones that don't have it. So that's all your wall finishings, your furniture, your drapes, your carpets.
Wow.
He says he can actually see that they're aging faster. So there you
that
go.
would speak to the humidity levels that
Yep.
ventilation can actually
Yep.
quietly sort of stop being a problem. So
Exactly.
that's incredible.
I think
Incredible.
it's often forgotten about heat recovery ventilation that its actual purpose is the continuous removal of moisture from the dwelling. And so we're generating moisture every single day, and you've got to have a way of removing it. And we all know that air moving over a surface will pick it up, but it's got to be ejected and taken out. And so that's actually the primary function of ventilation. But recovering heat is a bonus. And indoor air quality being better than outdoor air quality is another bonus. So it's good all round for everybody. Basically, the health of the occupants, health of the dwelling, lower operational costs for the house, reduces heating load requirements by around about 30% on average. So there's lots of benefits.
100%. Grant, thank you for explaining that all to me and to the benefits for people who are wanting to build a small smart space.
That's a pleasure. Thank you. Thanks for asking.
Matthew Cutler is a champion in the Building Better space and is the Business Development Manager for Homestar with the New Zealand Green Building Council. Like all people in the Building Better space, he has a really deep passion for people, planet, and doing things better. Matt kindly finds some time out of his really busy schedule to have a chat with me about all things Homestar and small smart spaces. So I'm talking to Matthew Cutler Welsh, who is the Business Development Manager at New Zealand Green Building Council. Hi, Matt. How are you doing?
Hi. I'm good, thank you.
Awesome. So, Matt, I have 3 little questions for you. They might turn into big questions. Tell me a little bit about where you started and what made you get involved with the New Zealand Green Building Council.
So I got involved with the Green Building Council the first time over a decade ago. I was working in Christchurch at the time, and I was involved with the Warm Up New Zealand campaign that the Energy Efficiency Conservation Authority was running to improve existing homes, so topping up insulation, putting in heat pumps, and a subsidised program. And we were one of the solution providers for that program. And it was during that time when I first heard about the Green Building Council. It was just getting started in New Zealand. I heard about this thing called Homestar, which was doing something similar. We were trying to assess homes and provide a little bit of guidance to existing homes, mostly around energy efficiency. But whenever we talk about energy efficiency, it always comes back to comfort and health. So I was quite interested in this new thing called Homestar. Then earthquakes happened in Christchurch. People weren't so worried about topping up their roof insulation if they didn't have a roof. And so that really changed kind of everyone's priorities. And we ended up actually moving from Christchurch with a young family. And then I got a job with the Green Building Council working on Homestar, and that was just after Homestar had launched in version 1, and it's changed quite significantly since then. And I've also did 3 or 4 years with the Green Building Council. I went away and did some other work in the field, but also in that time I learned about Homestar. I learned about learned about passive house. I learned about building science. I didn't really know that building science was a thing. And after spending a bit of time learning passive house, being adjacent to designers and people in that space, then I found out that Sam Archer and some other people had been doing some, continued to do work on the technical side of Homestar, including looking at the energy model that drove the energy efficiency side of the assessment tool. And that's really what attracted me back to the Green Building Council, because I'd seen by that stage the potential of passive house. And this seemed to me this amazing tool that had been opened up to the mass market rather than just being a niche thing that was great for those that could afford it or were just really committed. But it was the same energy model engine that was now a lot more available to the masses, and that's really what took me back to the Green Building Council, where I am now.
Fantastic. So most people listening to this, or some people listening to this, might not know what Homestar is. Do you just want to explain what it is? Yeah, so Homestar is, we describe it as New Zealand's environmental rating tool for homes. It's it's a comprehensive sustainability tool. I don't always use that term, sustainability, but it does look at a broad spectrum of what makes a home work. So primarily we're focused on health, comfort, energy efficiency, and more so now carbon as well. So it's not just energy, but that's a big part of it. We also look at water efficiency. We look at the choice of materials, the toxicity, and everything relating to health. Construction waste is also included in there. And what it aims to do is bring all of that into a single rating, so that people can then compare across the whole market to assess, where a house sits on this scale, which is now from 6. Homestar is the starting point, up to a 10, which is we think of as world leading. Mm-hmm. How does New Zealand Green Building Council and what you do there align with your core values? Because it sounds like it's something that sits really well with you, with what you do. A lot of it comes back to health for me, and the health of people inside homes, which I've always been conscious of, but the more I've looked into the impacts of buildings, particularly in New Zealand, and some of the problems that we have with things like quite high rates of asthma, even things like rheumatic fever, all these other respiratory diseases, there's a really strong correlation there between mold, the existence of mold inside our homes, moisture. Cold, damp homes are a real contributor to pretty bad health impacts right across the board. So from people living in fuel poverty, even to people I know who have bought brand new homes and are uncomfortable in them. And that's now happening not just in the winter when there's condensation on the windows still with code compliant homes, but we're seeing instances of houses that are simply too hot in summertime because there's nothing in the building code to prevent that from happening. So that's partly why I am reluctant and often avoid talking about sustainability, because first and foremost is health and comfort, and that they're real key issues, but they're also really important drivers for why people should demand better than code for this massively expensive thing that they either buy or pay a lot of their income to rent. And in a lot of cases, those homes that people live in are really not fit for purpose. Well, the industry is a better place with you in it, Matt. Well, try. Lastly, you've been very supportive of small smart spaces. So what made you so excited to support it, to help promote it, to bring it into the homestyle realm? What was it that just made you go, yep, this is great?
What I really like about small smart spaces is that making what we're trying to do accessible to more people. Some of the concepts around health, comfort, energy efficiency, they can seem quite overwhelming. Even the thought of engaging an architect can seem like quite a big step for people who simply just want a house that is going to work for them and their family. So providing something not quite off the shelf, but a good chunk of the thinking already done is a great option for people who know that they want a home that's going to look after them, and helps them achieve that, at least get a long way to a really workable solution without having to invest huge amounts of money up front.
And they can be Homestar rated, Matt.
Absolutely.
Matt, thank you very much for your time.
Pleasure.
So Red Stag is a company that caught my attention in 2020 when I started looking at the offsite space to see what solutions were out there. And one of the things that I love about Red Stag is that it's a New Zealand company, ideally grounded in the grassroots of our forestry industry, and has solutions that fit a wide variety of construction typologies. Now, in small smart spaces, I use their prefabricated structural floor and also their stairs that can just be dropped into place, just reducing the amount of construction on site. They do what is called CLT, but I'm going to leave it up to Andrew to explain all of that to you. Andrew kindly dropped in on a Zoom call with me and told me his story and the story of Red Stag.
So I have Andrew from Red Stag with me. Good morning, Andrew. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks, Sharon. Thanks for having me. It's brilliant.
Oh, thank you for coming. Now, some people might not know the story about Red Stag. So just there is a gorgeous New Zealand story to it. So did you want to just explain to people who might never have heard of Red Stag who you guys are and how you came about?
Yeah, no, this is absolutely a great New Zealand story to this. Red Stag is a family-owned New Zealand business. It started, can't exact date, but 22 years ago when the Very family purchased the Waipa mill in Rotorua, and that sort of became the driver and the central business that has developed into other areas from there. So we have the largest mill in the Southern Hemisphere of its type in the Southern Hemisphere down in Rotorua there, generally processing timber that's centrally grown, central North Island grown, into what you typically see on a building site, your timber framing and that sort of thing. And then more recently, probably the last sort of 6-7 years, we've developed into a wider offering of products and specialty products such as cross-laminated timber and CLT, which we're talking about today, which fit into the smart spaces designs. And yeah, it is a great New Zealand story. There's some great innovation going on, great people involved, great community networking, and it's world class, and that's really exciting.
So some people might not understand what CLT is. Do you want to just explain, because it's quite innovative and it's quite a new way of working with timber in our very traditional based construction industry? Do you want to just explain it to some people might not know about that?
Sure. So CLT, or cross-laminated timber as it's formerly known, it's the simplest way to explain it is that if you see the 4x2 and the 6x2 timbers that you see on building sites, from the Red Stag mill, we take what is called downgraded material. So it's not structurally sound enough to go into your timber framing, but we can take that and we re-laminate it, and it's probably a way to describe it is really, really thick kind of plywood in a way. So each layer is perpendicular to the other as you lay it up to 3 layers, 4 layers, up to 9 layers. And that's what gives it its strength. And you can make some really large panels out of that. So a lot of people will be familiar with tilt slag concrete, for example. You see that all over the place. Well, if you can take that big panel of tilt slab concrete, but make that out of timber, that's effectively what we do. And the panels are made to a size that suits the design, and then goes through a pressing process and then a CNC process to cut the shapes, cut the connection detailing and all that sort of thing, so that it goes to site and it just fits together like a jigsaw puzzle. It's really that simple.
And so a lot of this is offsite construction. I think a lot of people tend to think of offsite construction as just having an entire house made offsite. But one of the drives of Small Smart Spaces is to try and fast track various parts of the build process. So you guys embody that offsite construction. So your panels and stairs can be made in the factory while other building work is happening on site. Is that right?
Exactly right. Yep, exactly right. So when you think of a traditional way, the way a house is built traditionally, and let's say, small sparse, your designs are going on site, your floor is built up by, you've got piles, you've got bearers, then you've got joists, and then you've got your floorboard. It used to be the tongue and groove flooring. Now it's more just a big sheet of chipboard. Now that's not only time consuming, but it's labor intensive. So it takes quite a while, and depending on the size of the house, it could be up to 3 to 4 days to get that fully complete, or even up to a week. With the benefit of CLT and the offsite manufacturing side of it, we can turn up with floor panels that could go directly onto the bearer, or directly onto the pile even, and you'll have your floor down within probably an hour and a half. And then you can start straight on to standing up your timber framing and getting your walls up and getting your roof on and getting the building closed in so much faster. So that's really where the benefit is. It's time and labour that you're really making big savings in.
Which is fantastic. It's just a smarter way to do it, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I mean, the old adage of time is money is never truer, particularly in these days. So the fact that we can deliver a product that's, you're not having to wait for curing or concrete to cure or anything like that. You've got an immediate working platform as soon as that panel goes on. And it doesn't take long to fix it off. And you can just start straight away, as I said, getting your walls up, getting it all closed in.
Fantastic. What was the attraction? Because you're quite passionate about Red Stag. What was the attraction for you personally to become a part of Red Stag?
Oh, good question. There's a top-down passion in Red Stag. It starts with Marty Very, the group CEO. There's a real passion to drive sustainable building practices in New Zealand, and to be innovative in New Zealand. I really love the fact that we can do all this here. We don't have to rely on overseas manufacturers. We don't have excessive lead times of waiting for things to be shipped from overseas and hoping that it's right. It's a great New Zealand story. It's innovative. It's exciting, because we really are at the pointy end of the market and trying to change traditional building methods and thought processes with some good old-fashioned methodologies and how things are laid up and manufactured, but also complementing with state-of-the-art technologies and actual manufacturing plant, as well as digital technologies and things like that, which most of that's all over my head, but to be part of that is really exciting. I mean, I'm an ex-builder. I'm an ex-chippy. I did my building apprenticeship in Pyro many, many years ago. So the the excitement, what drove me was getting back into that timber side of things, building things that are sustainable, and will be around forever. And you can hang your hat, you put your name to it. You can drive past it and say, "Hey, I was a part of that, and we did that here." That's exciting, and it's that passion that, as I said, starts with Marty. It flows right through the company, and there's a real drive, and it's to be at that leading edge and making things work.
That's awesome. It's really lovely to be able to work with people who share my passion of innovation and sustainability. So I introduced you, Andrew, to Small Smart Spaces, and said you're a part of it. I was asking for forgiveness rather than permission, but
Right.
but you sat down and you were so supportive of it. What was one of the appeals to becoming involved and coming on here and talking about it?
Well, it just fits our own values and what we're trying to do ourselves. And I mean, we can't be the one-stop shop for everything. We need partnerships, and we like partnering with passionate innovators, and that's really where small smart spaces really comes into it. You're driving something. You're changing the way we think about how we live and where we live. I live in an old state house that was built in the 1940s. Now, I renovated it 15, 16 years ago, but to get it to a passive house level, it's just not viable. It's not worth putting the money into it. So to be able to start from scratch with a design such as yours, for people to be able to move into a healthy home right from day one, that includes innovative materials that have come from within New Zealand, through various partnerships that you're working with. It just shows a good old-fashioned team effort to do things better, and we're really excited to be a part of that.
Oh, well, I love having you on board because, having a whole team behind me that is passionate and a part of it, as you say, we can't do it alone. We've got to do it together.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. It takes a team.
Brilliant.
Takes a village to raise a child, as they say. So let's raise it.
Does. Let's raise it. Love it. Andrew, thank you so much for your time this morning.
You're very, very welcome. Anytime. Thanks, Sharon.
So Jeremy knows that I have been a Mammoth fan for many years. In fact, Mammoth is the insulation I've used in my own home, and I love it. 2 reasons I love Mammoth. Firstly, they understand building performance and have a friction-fitted product that is independently tested in situ, which, by the way, is not mandatory, because they really believe in their products. And it's a family-run New Zealand company, which is something that's really important to me. So here is my chat with Jeremy from Mammoth.
Good morning, Jeremy. So I've got Jeremy from Mammoth Insulation. It's great to have you here.
No worries.
So Jeremy, I have a few. Thank you. I have a few questions for you. You've been at Mammoth for a wee while now. What made you go to Mammoth? What made you stay there? Why do you like the job?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I've been here probably a decade or something to that effect. And I think, as I said to you, I used to work in industrial engineering, that sort of space, and my offsider Justin, who obviously you dealt with as well, works here. I'd worked with him as well, and he'd come over, and some years later I'd been in contact with him, and moved over basically, which was quite a big change. I wouldn't have known anything about insulation then, but I liked the people here because they're good sorts, and the product from my perspective is literally the best on the market, and I try to say that unbiasedly. And I like to go around and sort of speak to people and educate them on it and that sort of thing. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Nice. We like people who believe in what they do. So tell me a little bit about the drivers and the focus of the product at Mammoth. You've had your product independently tested at brands, which is a step up from most of the other insulation products, because I think you value actual performance over perceived performance. So speak a little bit to that.
Yeah, and that's an interesting one. That's the in situ testing thing. I guess at Mammoth, like big on the whole recycling thing, which is cool. But yeah, the fit for purpose side of things and how products install, I reckon, is a big one, which is kind of like not looked at in the market because you just look at R values and think it's same. But yeah, we manufacture an unusual sort of way on a thing called an airlay, where you kind of randomize fibers. You don't like stack them, and that's how we get this like dimensionally true finish weight, and that's why we call it friction fit, because you kind of get this interference fit between the framing. And it's important because you get a nice install with minimizing the gaps and creases at the edge. And it's sort of addressed in the old brands book, the old house insulation guide, where I think it says that like for every millimeter gap you give up 3% of the R value. And in that in-situ testing, we've typically got like a higher construction R value despite having the same R value as like a traditional bat. And for me, I think it's the most compelling point on the product, because it highlights like you want to make the product is dimensionally true and be able to install it in such a way that you get like it flush with the framing. And I think it's a really big one. Certainly for me, it's the most compelling sort of point on the product. It's an unusual way of manufacturing the airlay, but that's how we get that sort of finished result.
Oh, well, I 100% agree with you, which is why I'm a Mammoth girl. But lastly, Jeremy, you've always been supportive of me at Smart Living Spaces, and you were really enthusiastic to come on board with Small Smart Spaces. What makes you excited? What made you just say, yep, we're on board?
Yeah, I guess like, you've always been an enthusiast for the product, right? And I mean, the short of it is, we always want to support the sorts that like the whole building better thing. Obviously using our product. You want to support those sorts as best you can, whether it's like we do the sort of technical assistance. We obviously do the whole H1 calculation thing too, and I like doing that because we try to look at the building and use the right build-ups and try and make it cost effective as we can. Or maybe it's assisting on pricing, and that's another complex area, making sure the client's going through the right channel. So yeah, we want to offer as much support as we can, especially for the sorts like yourself that are enthusiasts for the product and look after them basically as best we can.
Yeah, and you've solved people's problems so they don't even know that they existed.
Yeah, no, literally.
Yeah, yeah. I always appreciate your time. Thank you for answering my questions, Jeremy. Have a good day.
No worries. Cool.
So that's just some of the amazing people who behind the scenes are the foundation of Small Smart Spaces designs. I just wanted to say a really big thank you to the collaborators for their time. If you're curious about them and what they do, the link to their company's websites are on the Small Smart Spaces page. I will put the link to that below. Now, if you wanted to get these vlogs delivered to your inbox every month, the link to get added to the email list is below. And in the meantime, that's it from me. Thanks for listening, tuning in, or watching, and I will catch you next time.